My name is Arushi Agarwal,
And my name is Alejandro Barreto.
and we're from the University of Southern California, and our presentation is titled Everyone Needs to Get Some Sex Ed, Effective Sexual Education for People with Intellectual Disabilities.
This is a quick glimpse of our poster at the 2021 SASH conference. We hope that you can join us in person.
Effective and comprehensive sexual education for people with intellectual disabilities remains lacking, although sex ed has been formally identified as a human right since 1983. Furthermore, sexual abuse is reported to be at least 2.5 times higher in subjects with an intellectual disability, as well as STI rates.
And so really we approach this project through three research objectives. Our first, identifying weaknesses and barriers in current educational offerings for people with intellectual disabilities, then create and deliver sexual education tailored to individuals with disabilities, also identify these key stakeholders who can contribute and actively produce a more targeted sexual education curriculum. And the third was to develop plans to reduce the incidence of sexual assault among individuals with intellectual disabilities, as well as their STI rates.
So first we began with a scoping review of literature to understand the problem. And then we identified important key stakeholders who would aid with successful implementation of new sexual education programs. And then we also analyzed existing sexual education models for individuals with special needs to identify gaps.
And so this graph basically represents what we found throughout our literature search. We found these different categories on the left, and we found a total of 12 studies that looked at different kinds of curriculums. Some included more topics than others. And so really we identified how many topics were identified in each of the studies. As you can see here, none of the studies had all topics covered.
We also analyzed the literature to find the gaps in sex ed and found that most sex ed programs were reactive rather than proactive, meaning that sex ed is delayed until displays of risky sex behavior due to stigma. Additionally, the discourse is restrictive and focused on risks rather than a holistic discussion about relationships. And there's an absence of centralized communication between different stakeholders who feel unsupported and uncomfortable about approaching sex ed. We also saw that the curriculum is really generalized and there's not really individualized instruction strategies to account for differences in learning in individuals. And lastly, there's a significant lack of research. The effectivity of interventions is not studied enough.
And so here on the left are a couple methods of delivery that we propose for an effective sexual education curriculum. So this includes visual, audio, pictures, videos, didactic teaching, active-based learning, longitudinal, and age development delivery as well. And on the right, we have all these key stakeholders, which include parents, educators, medical providers, research, and the ID community. And really, these are all bi-directional relationships. They're both all learning and supporting from each other, all focusing on the individual, which is the most important component.
So from our work, we concluded that to decrease sexual assault and reduce STIs in the ID community, sexual education needs to be accessible and tailored to the individual. Additionally, sex is a significant part of adult life, and thus effective sex ed is imperative to support individuals in leading a fulfilling and independent life.
And so in the future, we hope this research suggests for there to be stakeholder meetings and school boards, as well as to develop an effective and individualized sexual education curriculum. And of course, further research and funding to evaluate intervention efficiency in the future. Thank you so much, and we hope to see you in person. Thank you.